Hi kids, welcome back to Backseat Drivers Podcast. Today we have the legendary, the epic, the good-looking Oliver James Webb.
He discusses being on the brink of Formula One and his epic racing CV.
Then had a few meetings with F1 and thought, okay, I think like this is going to happen now. And then each contract just had like a bill attached to the end of it. I remember getting my first one and looking at the bottom and being like, they're going to pay me oh shit.
He also tells us how he breaks the land speed record.
Fraudulently.
Did you attempt the land speed record at some point?
Yeah. Oh, you're going to bring up loads of trauma now.
The reality of social media.
Social media is terrible in the sense that we all want to post the best bits. I wouldn't have those followers and I wouldn't post that. So if I post the boring parts.
How to make money as a racing driver.
What's the less glitz and glam side of your life?
I guess it's just the flat out work to achieve those things.
And how tough and dangerous IndyCar can be. What was that like when you go for your first oval race and someone's died?
Yeah.
Please enjoy the episode. And you need to subscribe. You think we're going to let you watch the episode before subscribing. You thought wrong. You have to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, family, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is. We don't care. Just watch the thing. Enjoy the episode.
Okay, Jordan, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Right, Mr. Oliver James Webb, thank you for joining us on Backseat Drivers. Now, I was going to say, you're like literally the busiest man in the world of motor racing, so I'm surprised you actually came today because you're literally at every single country, every track. But in terms of racing, we've had loads of drivers on doing all sorts, but you've literally done the most amount of racing we've ever seen. Like in terms of even combined with everyone else, you've probably done more driving. And you had like a route to Formula One, I think, in the early days. But going fully back to the early days, how did it all start? How did you get into racing, driving, etc.?
So I got into driving not through like any family or anything like that, which a lot of the time does happen because it is such a crazy kind of elitist niche sport that obviously getting into it in the first place is hard. But I just ended up karting around kind of 9 or 10 at some like one of those circus fair style like barriers in a car park. Off you go, have a bit of fun thing, which you just do at like a birthday party or something. Did that and I was like, oh, that's quite fun. And at that point in my life, obviously, I started late, so I'm kind of like 9, 10, 11-ish around that age.
That's late.
Yeah, that's late. Yeah. Like now it's like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So it's just mad to consider. I mean, technically my first proper race was when I was 12, I think, which is like, oh, I'm kind of pretty late now. I'm not sure how Formula One's going to happen. But yeah, going all the way back, it was just something I found fun. And I think at that point, I wasn't good at anything by that point. I was like, oh, I'm good at something now. Like, well, I think I'm good at something now. Started going to like Daytona, Manchester and these indoor go-karts just to do it the weekend. And then we were like, right, let's do one proper year of karting. Let's give this a go. So Steve Ogden, me in a van, go-kart in the back, rent an engine for a weekend. And back then, karting at a local kart track like a Wigan, kind of up north near Manchester or GYG in Wales is doable without being expensive. We're talking like £1,000 for a weekend type thing. So it's an expensive sport, but not impossible. So did that and won a club championship and got invited to go test something called a T-car, which was the first thing you could do when you were 14 to get into cars. And anyway, one thing led to another. That was a really good, it just so happened that championship was a strong championship. We had Jolyon Palmer, Luciano Bacchetta, Max Chilton. Like at that time, we just all looked at each other as 13, 14-year-old spotty kids that are super lucky to be driving race cars. I got a scholarship then from BMW, moved up through Formula BMW, then Formula Renault, then kind of fast forwarding F3, World Series, which for people who don't know, motorsport is effectively like F2 at the time. Then had a few meetings with F1 and thought, okay, I think like this is going to happen now. And then each contract just had like a bill attached to the end of it.
Really?
Yeah. Which at first, I remember getting my first one and looking at the bottom and being like, they're going to pay me how? Oh, shit.
No, so
Sorry, what was that? A bill
a bill
to do
he
what?
has to pay
Yeah.
to get into F1.
Yeah.
Get into F1.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be my salary.
You're the first. You're the first person. So I've heard, obviously, like I spoke to my friend Kush and some drivers in Formula 2 about it, and they say how they have to bring. I've heard stuff in the region of like 10 to 20 million in sponsorship, or just if your family's really wealthy just to get a deal in Formula 1.
Yeah.
And if you've basically got, let's use Colapinto let's use Bortoletto as an example. If you had two Bortolettos, but one can bring 5 mil and one can bring 15, they'll pick the one that's got 15.
Even if you've got two Bortolettos and one's 0.2 of a second slower, you're going to take the 10 million.
So can you give us an idea as to, obviously you don't have to say what teams and stuff, but you're the first person I've spoken to who's looked at this contract and seeing the figure that they have to bring to a team. And were you speaking to multiple teams?
Two, yeah.
Okay. So what was at the bottom of that contract?
So that was not for a driver's seat. That was for a third driver role.
So reserve.
Reserve driver, third driver role, 2 FP1 sessions, with a view to be a driver the next year, which I'm sure they would always say.
Yeah.
And that at the time was 5 million.
Really? To be a reserve driver?
It included an F2 season. So it's F2, third driver role at the F1 team, 2 FP1 sessions, and then loads of straight line running and maybe some days at Jerez, which now is extremely cheap. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but F2 in itself's got to be around 3 million almost now, euros.
There. Yeah.
So, when you're paying 2.5, 3 million for F2, it was. So I saw that, and obviously it was just absolutely, it didn't have like 5% of that. So,
wow.
Unfortunately, that was the end of the F1 dream, and then I kind of disappeared off to the States for a bit.
And that was it? Like, that was the only reason?
Yeah, that was the only reason. But also, I also understood that probably one of the only reasons I was in that meeting room. I mean, there was loads of people as quick as me or quicker than me. Or I was in that room because they probably thought this guy might also have some cash. I had some sponsorship at the time, but I mean, it was like enough to bring a couple of 100K from a brand here or there.
Yeah.
But that's not going to get you.
Spend that on catering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I realized quite quickly. It didn't come as a brutal shock because I was fairly attuned to what was happening as I was coming up through the ranks. I had strong teammates with Stoffel Van Dorn and racing against John-Eric Verne and Clyde and these people as I was coming up. So I knew what it would take, and obviously raced against Max and people who also had strong budgets coming through, as well as being just as quick or quicker at the same time. So I was aware of my opportunities and where they lay, and that's why I then kind of ventured off to the States.
Okay, so you built up this incredible skill set of driving these F2. What cars were they that year?
That year I was in World Series.
World Series,
yeah.
Okay, 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've obviously developed an ability to drive those cars at a high level. You've got this skill. You've realised, okay, F1's not going to happen. You go to the States. What's next?
So I go to the States and think, well, IndyCar's got to be easy, right? I'll go and do that. It wasn't.
No.
I went over there and did a couple of races with a distinctly average team at the time who were really open to having me in, and ended up getting 2 podiums in those 2 races. So I was kind of stood on that podium with James Hinchcliffe and Joseph Newgarden. And again, at that time, not knowing who those names were, ignorantly, obviously they'd done amazing in their junior formulas, but I'd been so focused on like the goal towards F1, I hadn't even looked at America.
Yeah.
It was this random track in Edmonton, which is half an airport, half this, and I didn't really know. It was like straight in the firing lines into this, from a super advanced World Series 3.5, effectively an F2 car, into like the old Indy lights were like a bathtub with a gear stick and try and find the gear. It was very raw and old school, and those drivers were, pretty impressive to be racing that round. And then, I got a really good deal in the headline-sponsored Lucas Oil's car with Sam Schmidt, which were the team to be with for Indy Lights in the following year. And it was a tough, tough year. Like on the street tracks, we had podiums and poles and did well. And every time I got on an oval, it just kind of fell apart. I mean, it didn't help that my first ever oval was Vegas, where also in the team Sam Schmidt, Dan Weldon, a UK guy who had tried to achieve good stuff in IndyCar, had passed away in my first ever oval race.
Really?
So I'd never until that point ever been even 1% afraid when you're in the car. You know, we're only afraid, we're all drivers, we're only afraid once it's going wrong and you're heading towards the wall. Otherwise, you're not really thinking about it. And then I became I was driving very consciously on ovals from that point instead of subconsciously. So I was very attuned to the danger.
What was that like when that happened? You go for your first oval race and someone's died. Can you give the viewers like a perspective on what actually happened? Obviously, you don't have to give loads of detail. And then how are you feeling for the rest of that weekend or going forward?
Yeah, I remember sitting in... The whole thing was a bit of a kind of crazy blur in the sense that, you know, this UK kid that's like moved to America, I'm in Vegas doing this speedway oval race, and you know, like the slowest we're going to do this weekend is like whatever 200 mile an hour going around this bowl. And there was a tension that whole weekend that was building up because of how close the cars could follow each other that weekend. It's the highest degree banking on the whole IndyCar calendar. It's why it's not on there anymore. And it was just too easy to be flat out. Like you could be on the crash box of the car in front in an Indy car at 220 mile an hour and be losing no front grip whatsoever because the banking was so strong. So there were some big crashes in practice as well. So kind of we knew something was going to happen. So yeah, it was a very uncomfortable, horrible feeling around that weekend. And I think even when I thought it wasn't in the back of my head, it probably was for ovals from then on.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, it was just like pole one weekend and then like back of the field for the oval the next weekend. So you just can't win an Indy Lights championship like that. And then you definitely can't make it to IndyCar unless you're good on ovals. And I just knew I wasn't good enough on ovals. Obviously, I was telling every single team that I was the best driver in the world and I was to try and get a seat. But and I would this is the thing, I know that. I think I am afraid of ovals. I know I'm not good on ovals, but if I got an Indy 500 deal tomorrow, I would get on the plane right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so for F1 fans that think ovals are easy, okay, even though you're going quick, it's just going left, flat out. Give someone a perspective of how tough it is to drive 200 miles an hour flat out on an oval.
Yeah, so I thought exactly the same. I'm probably not the best person in the world to speak to about it because I've not driven a modern IndyCar with it, but I know enough that, you know, things like preparing your overtake happens so early. You know, it doesn't happen there and then in the moment. Wind direction each lap. You have something called a weight jacker, which changes the weight between the damper and the suspension front left to rear right, which changes effectively the pitch of the car on a cross weight. So it gives it more front end into a corner and then less out of the corner. And you're changing that electronically in, mid, and out of the corner.
Wow.
Obviously, front and rear wing adjustments, which you can do in the pits. But it is, yes, you've got to have a good car. We all know that if your car is down on horsepower, you can't just hit the throttle harder. It's not going to suddenly overtake Fast and Furious style. You don't have 20 more gears you can pull.
Slip it into ninth.
Yeah, exactly. Just one more clutch and go. Yeah, I mean, that to a point, that's what some of us thought when we were first watching ovals, right? That you're half throttle all the way around, then you think, oh, I'll do the overtake now, and then I'll go full throttle now and do it. But there is so much that goes into it, and it is, I'd say for me, I compared ovals as the adrenaline and kind of serotonin factor I get from circuit racing versus the risk versus reward factor is super high, whereas an oval racing, it's not there. So the adrenaline serotonin is still there,
Just
but
fear.
Yeah, the risk versus reward wasn't there for me on oval racing.
I think it's like from drivers I've spoken to. So Jan Magnussen was my team manager at the start of this year.
Okay.
And obviously he's had his stint in Formula One. He's done one IMSA championship and Le Mans races and whatever. And he had a go at not IndyCar but NASCAR.
Yeah.
And he said, because I was talking to him about it, because I was like, how do I get into this? All the drivers are paid lots of money, and I was like, I wanna like, how do you even venture into NASCAR, right? And he was like, well, I did a few weekends, and I would just say, like, one, if you're going to start, it needs to be now, or it's kind of too late. But two, he said, it's the ovals that are the problem. He said, you'll go on a road course in a NASCAR, yeah, the car's a bit of a piece of shit, it's fun, you'll do well. Because you're European, you're used to being, you know, getting the maximum out of a car on a road course, which the Americans call it, or circuit racing. But he said the ovals are just a completely different story. He said it's really, one, he said it's fucking scary. And two, he was like, it's very scientific almost. Like, you don't want to be at the front of the pack. You want to be, it's you know, you've got a spotter in your ear the whole time. and NASCAR, you're not going flat out all the time like you might be in IndyCar. So yeah, was it just a complete culture shock when you went to go and race on ovals? Because I feel like nothing's the same.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Total culture shock. Nothing. I just didn't understand it before. And almost what Netflix has done for Drive to Survive for the American market now, watching Formula One. I don't know if you've seen the NASCAR version. That's kind of what it did for me now watching NASCAR, because I didn't understand how early you have to prepare the overtakes and who is in front when and the personalities involved. All of a sudden, I'm watching NASCAR races. And until I did the Indy 500 weekend, the Freedom 100 race, I never really watched the Indy 500. Now it's my favorite race to watch every year. Like, if I could pick one race to watch a year and I'm not allowed to watch anything else, it'd be that. Wow. Which is weird because it's an oval. But I know now what it's like being in that driver's seat. So I know what they're all doing, and it's just bonkers. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Did you live out in the States in that period?
Sorry, I was just holding your mic away from you.
Sorry, sorry, mate.
Ask that again.
Did you live out in the States in that period?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I lived in Indianapolis, near the race workshop. Not the sexiest place in the world to live, but the place you need to be when you're kind of first in motorsport in Indiana. And then I lived in Santa Monica for a bit after that.
You enjoy your life out there, or?
Well, 21-year-old with an English accent in America's not too
Gus has said this before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to just quickly ask about, so with the whole Formula One dream before you come to the States, do you have any like resentment, or how do you look back on the fact that the only barrier stopping you from being maybe an F1, definitely as a reserve driver, was that you couldn't bring 5 million to a team?
At the time emotionally it's pretty tough, but fairly quickly, and certainly definitely now, what outweighed that fact was the fact that I was where I was at that point in time anyway, and that I was already ahead of so many people who can't do what I was lucky enough to be able to do, and what my family supported me in doing when I first started, and then the sponsors I had after that. So I already felt imposter syndrome and almost guilt for where I was at that point anyway, that almost to a point that if I had the 5 million now and I'd paid for that seat and I'd got it, I'd be embarrassed to take it because like maybe some of the people I was coaching I know are quicker than me, and it just. And I think that will always happen in motorsport. I mean, there are times where you have a driver with budget who is one of the best drivers in the world and in the best car. For instance, Orlando Norris. So they had strong budget coming all the way up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best drivers in the world, and now he's in one of the best cars in the world. So that's a great combination.
Yeah.
Then you can get super wealthy drivers who aren't that quick, who are. I mean, I think Lance Stroll gets a load of stick because he is so close to Alonso. If we exclude all the mistakes, he does. Okay, I don't think he belongs in Formula One. I think there's a million people that should be in there instead. But how close can you get to what I think is one of the best drivers in the world that often? He's obviously not a bad driver.
No.
But if I was in that situation and I was Stroll and I had that, I'd find it so tough to keep going, even though like he's good enough to warrant being a professional driver. I mean, it just leads back to the fact that if I had that 5 million now and I was advising someone, I'd be like, just please don't do it. Just please take that 5 million and do something else with it, even if it's not motorsport or go. The best thing I ever did was fall into endurance. And like I said, I'd never seen the Indy 500 before. I'd never seen Le Mans before. And all of a sudden I ended up at Le Mans and I was stood on the podium and we'd won the championship. And I was like, this endurance thing's all right. I'll do this.
I was going to say, so most drivers, let's say, don't get into Formula One. They go and chase a works drive, which for those that don't know is when you're paid by a manufacturer to do Le Mans, GT World Challenge, big races, right, with a salary. But if you look at your career after that, you haven't necessarily done that. You've almost diversified what you're doing. Was that something you had a mindset of doing, like just do as many drives as possible with as many, great companies to almost have a network of people that you work with, if that makes sense? You didn't go, I guess, through that traditional route of a works driver.
Yes, I'd say I wanted to be a works driver. I had a couple of offers which I didn't say yes to. There was a couple of ones that I wanted that I just plain simply didn't get. But I ended up doing, like you said, I ended up deciding that, okay, this is what I know a works driver earns, or at least these days, but it was a bit different back in the day. It was a very decent salary. This is what the average kind of works driver earns. These are the restrictions involved. Is it worth it? And then I had made enough connections. I always made a conscious effort on the side of racing that I knew there's a million people who are quick, and there's a million people now who have budget.
Yeah.
But I can be the one that maybe works harder than everyone else, not everyone else, but
Behind the
work
scenes.
as hard as I can to make the connections that, I mean, it just takes one dinner at the right time to meet the right person. And then it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 people quicker than you because they're not sat next to you at dinner. So I can speak to that person and kind of maybe sell the right thing. And I did that, and it got me into as many seats as possible. And in the end, you earn more actually from not being a works driver if you do it right. And then you're not restricted at all.
So if you want to become a racing driver like some of our lovely guests, and you're not really sure how to start because it seems like you need a lot of money and family connections that know the industry, etc. Well, now you have the perfect opportunity to prove you have what it takes on a completely level playing field. That's why we've created Forsetti. Forsetti is an online platform that guides you on how to start your racing driver journey and helps you develop your skills to climb up the ladder. We host time attacks every single week, and if you're the fastest driver, we put you straight into a car and integrate you in an established esports team racing against some of the best talent in the world. So if you think you're the best thing since sliced bread and you have what it takes, make sure to sign up at forsettirace.com. Link is also in the description. Back to the podcast. Yeah.
So could you give us a bit more detail on that? So what was your plan in terms of, you're like, right, I need to meet more people. I need to meet some influential people with money that might like me, that want to put me in a race car, pay me to be in a race car, right? Or sponsor me.
Yeah.
How do you go about initially? What's your networking strategy? What things are you trying to get involved in? Are you smashing stuff on LinkedIn? Are you just finding random people to email? What strategy did you use?
Now I could probably be better at it. But the way it started when I was younger is I didn't want to be at school. I only wanted to race. I found something I was good at. So everything I did in life or at school was centered around racing. So at school, I was like, what subjects can I do? Like, we didn't have engineering. We didn't have like physical therapy or anything that was related to being better in the car. So I was like, right, I'll do business studies, economics, photography and videography. I'm going to make the best Instagram page I can, the best. Like I was taking a camcorder to my testing tracks and giving it to my coach at the time, and like he was recording me, and I remember Duncan Tappy helped me like edit my videos at the end of the day when I finished my data, and it would never affect the racing side, but I was conscious of it that back then it wasn't normal to walk around with a camera. Like, it was seen as you're distracted from your job. Now it's encouraged. You know? So now it's more normal in F1 if Lando's walking around and doing a video or whatever.
Yeah.
If, you were doing that only 5-10 years ago, you'd be like, go do your job.
Yeah.
So I was very conscious of that. I was making sponsorship proposals in school, and I was like actively going to any kind of black tie charity event or that I could offer like a package for, that I knew, okay, maybe I can help work with the BRDC to help with this charity to get them tickets to there, and I'll host them, and maybe they know influential people, and Googling which, wealthy people based in the UK are into motorsport that don't have an in yet. Just anything I could in my spare time. And that led to just going to as many events as I could as when I was younger to meet those people and try and tie brands in together. Because I was also aware that if I met the CEO of Coca-Cola sticking a sticker on the side of the car, even 15 years ago, still didn't work. It was a long time ago when that used to work. So I needed to put those connections together so they could do business together. And then in turn, that could then kind of sponsor my racing. And then it did eventually start to work, and met the right people in the right circles, and did free Q&A talks and jobs that normally people were charging for at some hospitality so that they could meet me. I knew that if I went into a room at Silverstone and the average price of a ticket in there was 2K, but I'm the person doing the Q&A, sat with Martin Brundle of DC, if, I just accepted whatever they were willing to pay for that role, even if I'd normally charge more than that, I knew that I might meet one person in this room.
Nice.
And coincidentally, that's how I've met one of my current teammates. So I was doing Q&As in a hospitality that led to someone who bought tickets from that event, was at the event at the time, wanted to get into motorsport, didn't know any drivers in it, and thought I was quite personable. And now we've raced together for the last 2 years.
And I suppose also having an interesting life helps with those Q&As, right? Because, if you've only done one type of racing, or just like, a lack of opportunities or whatever, I think you have more ammunition to go into these things, right? With these opportunities, you have more to talk about with these connections you're making, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Rather than being a blank canvas, like, I'm trying to be a professional racing driver. You've done all sorts of stuff. One thing I was going to ask is, did you attempt the land speed record at some point?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it was a production car record rather than like Thunderbird, like the whatever, the one that does like 1,000 mile an hour,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna bring up loads of trauma now.
Oh god. What happened?
Oh, it was like probably the most stressful month of my life. It was to beat Koenigsegg's production speed record, which we'd attempted with me and a Koenigsegg before that, actually. So we had the UK one, but not the world one. So I'd done 245 mile an hour or 250 mile an hour, I can't remember, in a Koenigsegg, which was, again, we're talking about adrenaline, risk versus reward. Land speed records are absolutely on like the bottom of my list moving forwards, because you don't get the adrenaline from it. You know, doing 0 to 60 in a Tesla is more fun than doing 200 to 300 mile an hour in a straight line, because at that point, the only thing you're thinking is, if I crash at 250 mile an hour, I'm dead. I'm 100% dead.
Yeah.
100%. So especially where we were doing
Where were you doing it? Was it Salt Plains or something?
No, I wish. Because
you're not dead on. I mean, unless you roll.
Right. So yeah. So I saw your face when I said that, but we were doing it on Highway 11, which we'd closed down in Vegas, between Vegas and LA, which is where Koenigsegg had last done it, which is this slightly wavy, bumpy 2-lane road with a ditch either side into like the desert. So like it was.
So you could roll then.
Yeah.
Probably.
So it was a month out there with a company called SSC Tuatara. The car was genuinely incredible. I'd never been in something so quick. Like, it accelerated from 200 to 250, like a 911 Turbo S from 0 to 50. It was unbelievable. And there was it was, you know, Discovery Channel were there, and there was like huge filming budget behind it. We had jets in the sky, helicopters in the sky, full police closed down like Vegas. And like, it was an awesome gig. And I probably saw dollar signs as well, because I was like a well-paid gig, and I was like, this is good. This is going to be good for every side of.
But ultimately, you're risking your life for that paycheck. Right?
Yes. Which during the runway tests, I was fairly comfortable with, and then when we finally got
sorry,
you're risking your life for that paycheck.
Yeah. I think paycheck was part of it, definitely, but it was also like the accreditation. The kind of fame that would come from having that credibility. Yeah. There you go. It's not the fame part, it's the credibility part. And then maybe I can make a career out of this. Maybe this can be my side gig. I can do a little bit more stunt driving that involves this. But so yeah, we did all the practice that week, and I had this feeling in the back of my head, like, this car is doing this so easily. This is like so quick. But also, I when we're in race cars, you know, it feels different to a road car. They're so different. And I'd also race cars don't go as quick really as road cars, top end anyway.
Top speed, yeah.
So I don't have that much experience knowing what a road car feels like at 500 kilometers an hour.
Was it not roll caged or anything?
It was roll caged.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. It was carbon tubbed. It wasn't roll caged. Yeah.
Right.
And also I remember me being told that, Michelin are going to like be here for everything, blah, blah, blah. And then when I got there, it was Michelin there. But the first thing they did is give me a sheet of paper that says, we're not responsible for anything that happens over 100 mile an hour.
Well, that's kind of the whole idea, isn't it?
Which wasn't on them. It was on the car company and the film production who hadn't told me that, because Michelin have to do that.
Yeah.
They kind of do that and go, no, but we will. We're here for you to do this. Yeah. This is the whole point. We just legally, if you die,
it's not
this.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
Which, if you die, who's going to sue them?
Well, yeah, exactly. That week during the testing, and I feel incredibly guilty that I don't remember the name, but I think it's because I blocked it out of my head. I think it's ES Motorsport, or the people who do all the big tuning here in the UK with the Porsches, attempted the same record the week we were doing it, and the guy died.
Shit.
Really?
Okay. And I think the production tried to keep that away from me, but it was in the news, and obviously I found out. So that wasn't great. My ex at the time was pregnant in a hotel down the road, thinking I was doing another race day.
No, you didn't tell her what you were doing.
I thought I was doing some driving.
No, you didn't say you were going to break the speed limit.
Break the land speed record.
So I was the morning of. I was incredibly nervous. Helicopters in the sky, jets around. It's 4 a.m. It's like police are setting up barriers. Like I've still got nothing's been released yet, and I have the whole movie on my phone because there's like a whole like case around it.
Give it to us exclusive.
Yeah, and the reason there's a whole case around it is because we ended up thinking we'd done it and being like a good 30 mile an hour short, which is a chunk, like 50
speed.
plus kph short. There's all sorts of conspiracies as to why it was so off. I'll get the end result is that the record ended up being redone and verified. It just had to be done at another time. So they now hold it again. But at the time, it was all this elation. Like every single motoring magazine or TV show that existed in the world published it. Like my phone was nonstop for like weeks.
Yeah,
it was absolutely everywhere. You know, TV interviews for it. It felt like it like was the Formula One championship at that point. It was incredible because it was like people love something attainable, and that is a road car that you can buy. So it's more like cool to be on Top Gear with that than racing. You know what it's like with racing. It's a bit more niche.
Yeah.
So it felt very special and very cool. It felt like the risk is done. Like I can breathe now. That's fine. And then I remember Tim Burton, Shmee 150 online. He was the first person that called me, and he was like, I've been looking at the comparison because we did it on the exact same road that Koenigsegg did it with a driver I really respect, and he also kind of knew at this time. He's like, it doesn't add up. Like I've freeze framed it at all the points that you passed the same Koenigsegg, and like it's starting to drop behind. And I'm like really confused. And then Julian, who owns VBox, so for any of us who know within racing, it's a data system that is extremely accurate. He'd done full calculations. He was like, no, it's way off. Like it's way off. It's not right. So then I had just had the next 2 weeks of then speaking to the car company, then the press coming, and then it slowly went out. And Tim's like, just so you know, I'm releasing this video, which is his business. Like, it's the equivalent of TMZ finding something out. They're going to, whether it's your friend or not, they're saying it.
Yeah.
And then it all started to come out. And of course, the press love a good story. So it's like fraudulent top speed run.
But sorry, how did they get the data? How did they, like, surely there's shitloads of data on the day. Like how
in the car,
there is. And then the car company then refused to release any data, and then immediately I was like, oh, this is bad. Either it's been faked, or they realized once they'd announced it wasn't right and tried to hide it. It's only one of those two
what
options.
did they do? Just tell you afterwards that you'd done it, and everyone started celebrating?
Yeah, they checked their data,
but they didn't show you.
No, nothing. I just saw GoPro videos. I had the speed in the car.
What speed did you get to?
I had the speed in the car.
There was a fake speedometer. 800 miles an hour.
I'm going to have to check what speed. And my mind must have literally blanked this out. This is really bad.
What roughly?
532 kilometers an hour.
Oh, kilometers.
Wow.
331 mile an hour.
What did that feel like?
So, and it ended up being like 20 mile an hour less, whatever they ended up. So it's still quick enough.
Yeah.
In a road car, in the same way that they sell production cars like BAC Mono, which is a road legal car, but let's face it, it's like as close as you can get to. It pretty much had like a drag engine in the back of it. So it went from incredible elation to just the phone non-stop ringing, the son leaving me like voicemails like, if you don't answer, we're just going to print this anyway, so give us a quote. So yeah, it was a pretty horrible time, but luckily it all came full circle, and I managed to stay fairly, I say fairly clean, and maybe I'm being too harsh on myself. I pretty much got zero backlash. I got the odd random message.
It's not your fault, is it?
No, but then it's people being like, how do you not feel the difference between 250 and 300?
Oh, come on.
And I'm like, I genuinely don't.
How many of the viewers have done 250? But what's it like coming away from your fraudulent land speed record? What's it like sat in the car doing, you sat there and you must be doing in excess of 250 for a long time to get to 320, 330, whatever it officially was, 310. When you're sat there at 300 miles an hour plus, what is going through your mind?
Well, whatever speed I ended up doing, even if we call it 280, I think it ended up being. But the process is really strange building up to it. So it's such a different driving style. So you don't floor it away from the line, because we had an infinite road on this straight line. So it was about building the speed up really slowly so the turbo didn't heat up too quick to keep it cool.
Right.
Accelerating really smoothly to like 200 mile an hour, and then 200 mile an hour became your 0.
What?
And then from 200 you go full throttle.
I love that, accelerating really smoothly to 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. I mean, the thing...
So that's not even full throttle?
No, you could cruise to 200 so easy in this thing.
What?
It was scary. The weirdest part of the whole thing was once I got to... whatever, let's call it 290, 300 miles. Once you get to that point, you can't lift off, because you'll lift off, it'll nosedive in the ditch. Dead. So you got to lift off super slowly. So the lifting off was the most horrible part. So I'm lifting off, and the thing is set up as light on its feet as it possibly can. The tire is at like 5 bar. The thing is like turned into like a coin. It's like centrifugal force of the tire is like unreal. So it's floating, and you're like lifting, trying to like slowly settle it back down into where it is.
So are you constantly modulating the throttle as you're driving at 300?
Yeah, because all the wings are almost inverted to like generate lift, because you want friction. So it's the opposite to try and give it grip, which is almost like trimming out an Indy 500 for the Indy cars. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I've done it. Like, it's done. And then you look down, you're like, I'm doing 180 mile an hour. It feels like I'm stood still.
Wow.
So your reference, and it's a really good example for when AM drivers first start racing. You know, when you first take someone in the passenger seat and you first hit the brake, they've only ever braked up to a roundabout before that, and all of a sudden their head's going through the windscreen, and it feels ridiculous. And then over time, everything just becomes normal, and that speed then became normal. So now, for the next week, when I was driving on the road, I just had to be so conscious that like 180 mile an hour is not a 30
normal
zone anymore. Yeah, it was just strange.
But when you're doing that speed, because obviously the difference, like to give the viewers a racing driver's perspective, when we're driving our cars that we're familiar with, which is for all of us pretty much GT racing, GT3 cars, it doesn't feel that fast when you're driving. And one, you never, like you said, unless you're going towards a wall and you're having in the middle of what's about to be a big crash, you don't think about, am I going to be okay? Like, is something going to happen? Whatever. And you're also, I think part of that is, one, obviously get used to the speed and stuff, but two, you've always got the next corner, the next braking zone. You're more focused on your performance than anything. But when you're going just in a straight line at 300 miles an hour, you've got nothing else to... I can imagine me not thinking about anything else but, am I going to die?
Exactly.
One tyre blowout,
Yeah.
and I'm screwed.
And that was the non-enjoyment factor for me, because it was... all the enjoyment was going to come from the result of doing it rather than the actual doing it. So, and that's why I just won't... Told myself I'd never do it again. 3 weeks later, I then re-broke the Koenigsegg record back in the UK, because of course the phone wouldn't stop ringing. People were like, hey, will you do the speed record in our car? So in my head, what I'd planned to do worked, but then I didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So I was getting all these invites to drive these incredible cars at these crazy runways. But I think one thing we've not mentioned in all of this story is that you don't need a professional driver for that. You need a piece of meat with the right foot. Because to drive around a track, you need a good driver. And to do NASCAR Indy 500, you need an incredible good driver. To drive in a straight line at that speed, up to 100 mile an hour, up to the speeds we normally do, and when you can save a car, you need a good driver. You need good reactions. You need a good baseline of how the car feels under your bum, what's going on, good mechanical sense of knowledge for noise, aero, everything.
Yeah.
Once you get to the 250 mile an hour mark, doesn't matter if Superman's in the car, because once it goes wrong, it goes wrong. There is zero saving it. Yeah. So at that point, I also felt, maybe used is the wrong word, but I'm like, they just needed a name in the car who will take that check, because it's not fun if Joe from down the road who works at Starbucks does it.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. Actually, I'm not here for my skill. Like, I'm here because I'll help the hype when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. God. It's intense.
It's horrible. It was so horrible.
Is there anything driving wise you said no to because it was too dangerous?
Oh, how do I not sound like a whore? I say yes to everything. I love driving cars. I love driving anything that goes quick. If it's dangerous, I won't get in it.
I was going to say, is there anything that was like, nah, too dangerous?
Oh, I really should have a bigger list.
I was just going to say, you don't have a line.
I don't think.
Yes.
I did.
I've never heard that one before.
I just
Workaholic.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's got to be work related. Like
If someone said, I want you to drive off a ramp off the top of like a skyscraper onto another one, would you say yes?
I'd be like, show me the plans. Let's see how safe this is.
I feel like, would you not be like, at least let's have a look?
Yeah, come on, you guys would be like, let's have a look.
All right, let's
put a bouncy castle in between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out. Like, where's the safety here?
Yeah.
I want to try new stuff all the time. Yeah. Like just, especially with motorsport. Like I was lucky enough in like post lockdown. I probably shouldn't say I was lucky enough, followed by Scott Speed broke his back, but that's how the story works. So Scott Speed broke his back, couldn't do this rallycross seat. I ended up getting the seat.
That's how a lot of our opportunities work, right?
Yeah, to a point. And all of a sudden I did a year of rallycross and I was like, I'd never done any front wheel drive stuff before. And effectively a 4-wheel drive car drives like a front wheel drive car. And at that time, again, ignorantly, I didn't watch rallycross. I didn't know who's who. Like my teammates are Kevin and Timmy Hansen, who are incredible rallycross drivers. And I'm doing this. I don't even know what kind of the name or it was around Europe. So it was super, super cool. And all of a sudden I've got this rallycross experience and said yes to that. And it's the best thing I did because it was a one-off race. And like, and at that point also it was like not paid. It was like, we know you're not doing anything. We know it's locked down. We know you like cool cars. This is a cool car. Get yourself to Linden Hill. And then I did it. And then all of a sudden, then I actually did get paid to do it. And then I'm doing the whole year. And that was really fun. So I like saying yes to new things. If I turn up and it's terrible, then I will walk away and I'll leave. I have a little bit more of a safety margin now that I've got a daughter. But one thing that hasn't changed is when I get in the car, I feel no difference. And it's strange telling some people that, like, do you drive differently now you've got a kid? Absolutely not. And I think if I did, it would be more dangerous.
Yeah. And so I was going to say, with all these opportunities, you saying yes to everything, is there a cost? Do you ever feel you're missing out on, call it like opportunity cost almost, saying yes to this, but something else is being turned on? Do you ever feel that, like, what's your social life like outside of all this, incredible work, etc.?
I think when I say no to nothing, obviously a lot of the time I'm being asked to do things that are happening at the same time. So I'll pick the best thing. But yeah, if I've got nothing on, and also when I say no to nothing, obviously now with a child, I have like a fixed rule of how many days I'll ever spend away from her. And I always fly back to see her back and forth. And I have quality time with her. Obviously people live different lives. Some people leave, go to work before the kid wakes up and comes back in finance when the kid's already asleep and generally doesn't see them to the weekend. When I see my girl, we have full days out and do weekends away. You've got the option
of like having 3 days straight with her.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and again, when I say I don't say no to anything, that includes that. It also applies to family time. So the cost maybe is the social element, but also like we are the luckiest people in the world, like all of us, to do this for a living, however often or not, to travel to these places, to see these things. Okay, yes, I might miss the odd night down at the pub where I used to go to school with some friends, but if they're good friends, they'll still be there and understand my work. And maybe I have to be in New York and end up on a random night out with some new friends and then, go to a racetrack the next day. And for me, that is the social element. So I don't feel, when people ask me the sacrifice question, like it's a sacrifice at all. I constantly feel like I need to work every fucking second I can to not lose the life that I've got, because I think I love it. Yeah. I just love every part of motorsport around it.
So because of that fear of losing the life you have and the amazing opportunities you get, would you say you're a workaholic?
Yeah, 100%. And I have, and I've definitely now realized the kind of maybe my kind of anxiety or OCD tendencies that have now gone in towards needing to be busy. Like for instance, last night we took a red eye from Austin, from Texas, to go to the team Christmas party. So like,
this was last night.
Yeah.
By the way, we're in Brackley right now.
Yeah, Brackley. Ollie was in Austin just last night.
Flew, went to the shooting, and then I went to like unpack my bag, and I was like, right, I've got 3 hours, so I haven't slept in 2 days, so I should have a nap. But instead, I'm like, I'm going to arrange all my stuff, and then I know I've got some flagged emails to do, so I'll do those. Well, next thing I know, I'm just like, I'm eating into my time, and that part I don't like is that I feel like even if it's for 30 minutes, if I'm not doing something, then I'm wasting time. But I need to realize that those 30 minutes resting is probably worthwhile for. So yeah, I think maybe eventually I'll have some like, I always dream of some week away to like recoup and get better. And then if I ever get it, I'll do the first half a day of it and be like, get me out of here. Like, I need to go and do something now.
So what's the cost to what we see on Instagram? You've got a big following on Instagram. Was it 250,000 or was it
300
like
plus?
that.
Yeah,
Something,
I think, yeah.
Something, don't know.
Something like that. What about my TikTok?
Yeah. Or is your TikTok bigger?
My TikTok's way bigger.
Is it? Sorry,
There's
we
no
haven't
dancing
used
on TikTok.
much.
No, I was actually only joking about TikTok, but TikTok's my bad habit in the evenings, just scrolling through it.
It's
Yeah,
really
it's so
bad.
Oh, it's so addictive. Sorry, anyway.
That's all right. No, I was going to say, so we see the glitz, the glam, the helicopters, the cool cars, the being in Austin, whatever it is, doing all this cool stuff. But what happens? What's the reality behind the scenes? How do you get there in terms of like getting these deals? Are you firing out emails all the time? When you're home, like you said, you struggle to not be working. What's the less glitz and glam side of your life?
I guess it's just the flat out work to achieve those things. Now, social media is terrible in the sense that we all want to post the best bits.
Yeah.
I think some parts of it are getting better. I love the F1 direction of dry humor, of memes, of the BTS stuff, of what's actually happening. I think that's great. I do struggle as a father of a girl as well to know from a female's point of view that it is extremely fake and biased online, the life, even to the point of what you're getting at with what I post. It's what goes on behind the scenes, but it's not as interesting if I wouldn't have those followers and I wouldn't post that. So if I post the boring parts, so of course we'll post the best 30 seconds of our day, week, month, however often you post. That's the job. Post the best bit. That's the bit that people want to see because it's fun. I try and show some of the behind the scenes sometimes, which there is a lot of, alone in a lot of hotel rooms a lot of the night, that the stress of, I'm not posting the suitcases that I dragged like 15 blocks through New York in the cold to get to that helicopter to swiftly go off to JFK. Or put online the fact that the only reason I got the helicopter is because the Uber was $180 and that helicopter cost me $150.
No way.
Where was
to go
that?
to JFK. Something called Blade. And if you order it I was the only one on the helicopter because it's like the heliport when you land at Nice to go to Monaco.
Yeah,
it's cheaper than a taxi
It's cheaper
sometimes.
than a taxi.
But
we looked at that when we went.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
no, you brought it up.
It was like
is
200,
mad.
200 euros.
Yeah, and then you're splitting it, and then it just so. I could in every single story be like, "Hey, I'm doing this by the way because I secretly don't need to do that." It's fun. I'm lucky I get to do it. So I end up posting the best bits. Yes, there's stuff behind the scenes that goes on that's not as fun. But hopefully people realize that more often with social media, and I'm guessing people want to see those fun parts. And for me, even when I was younger, so I had. My Instagram following, I don't think is necessarily because of what I do now. It's because of how early I started it. I used it as my like life sticker book, and I loved it. I love looking back at the memories myself. And sometimes I'm alone on a plane or whatever, and I'll scroll back through my photo albums or Instagram and look and remember really fun times. And I enjoy that side of it as well.
So how do you go about what point was it when you were really young that was the intention like I need to grow a following, or was it just
No.
I'm just going to post my life?
It was just I just want to like post my life in a chronological cool order that means I can look back at it. It was literally like the equivalent of like our parents with like the peel back film photo albums, and then they can look back at that at Christmas. That was kind of my version.
It is kind of like that now, actually. Like the way this day and age, social media can be like that. Yeah, okay. It can be the best bits, but also a photo album is as well. If you think about it, like when you're going through past stuff. But something I was going to ask is actually on all the stuff you've done, how many do you know how many types of car, like how many models of cars you've driven?
Oh, I need to make a
Roughly.
list. I know how many.
Because it's crazy. Just on one page on your Instagram, it's like must be like 10 different types of cars.
Yeah, I mean it is almost like I think road car wise, you'll struggle to name a supercar I've not driven. which
What's
is pretty
your
cool.
favourite?
Considering I'm not a Top Gear race
Yeah.
driver or whatever. Favorite is just so hard, like, because I am like I'm an old man now, so
You
I
must
don't
have sat in
want,
something that's like blown you away.
there's things that blow me away, but I wouldn't have as a daily. Like if I could pick one car forever, it'd probably be something like
Not as a daily though. Just,
Okay.
Just
Yeah, from
No,
your point-
no one wants to know what your favorite.
No, but I'm
daily
talking like
car
a
is.
Pista or an F12 TDF or something
Oh,
that is
right, okay.
super comfy, great for car tours, sexy. You can go on a date in it, but you can also put your luggage in it, and it won't break my back on the road. Okay, so which
You put your luggage in a Pista.
yeah.
Can
It's
you?
not bad, yeah.
Where?
It immediately
You
deletes
got to replace your
Lamborghinis.
date for the luggage.
Makes sense. No, like Lamborghinis are out the window straight away because they sound amazing and they look good, but they're the most uncomfortable things in the world to drive.
Really?
For me, anyway.
How come? Seats? Like
Yeah.
just stiff?
Even their comfort seat is like the bucket seat of a Porsche. For me, it just doesn't work for me. Like I've had GT3 RS, which was wicked car, but just cannot be used as a daily. I had a McLaren 600 LT, which I loved, but quickly realised I couldn't afford that, so I shouldn't have bought this car, and got rid of that. The best car I actually ever ended up getting was and again, this goes back to me firing out emails all the time. I ended up getting a deal with HRO, and it didn't end up in a cash deal, but it ended up that I could get this Aston Martin Vantage for like 400 quid a month. You can have it as long as you want. You just keep paying this. We'll subsidise the rest of it. You don't have to pay the insurance, whatever. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Good deal, yeah.
And I never really thought I'd be that attracted to Astons, whatever. It's like the best car I ever owned. It was like, sounded amazing. It's not crazy quick. You can turn up to a meeting in it. Like if I turn up to a meeting in a 600 LT, it's going to be hard to convince them to give you sponsorship money because they'll just assume. Like if
You've got the cash anyway.
yeah, or just this young racing driver, like what just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
The Aston's a bit classier. It was super comfy, but I don't know what. I don't know why I want Pista, but I just really want like a Ferrari Pista. Is like that'd be like the one. Yeah, maybe not the one that would blow me away, but no, I haven't written a list of every single car. I think I want to now because I'm obsessed with my list.
It'd be an impressive list.
Literally, I have lists for like everything that I like
Really?
in the evening. Like, if I think of anything at night, I've got to wake up and write it down. Otherwise, I'm not sleeping. I do have a list of every single track I've ever been to, which
How long's the list? I think every single
It
track.
must be every single track.
let's see if I've got enough signal to
Been to
download it.
Daytona,
bad.
Milton Keynes.
Daytona, Milton Keynes. This is without kart tracks.
Oh.
I did it without kart tracks.
Blyton Park.
Anyway, that's not downloading. I think the last I checked, it was over 180.
180 tracks.
Yeah. Excluding kart tracks and excluding like airfields or anything like that, like 180 race circuits. So circuits,
That many
if
more
I
in
made
the
a car,
world, to be honest.
yeah, it was like most. There's quite a few Japanese ones that I haven't done, but like North America, South America, UK, all of Europe, Middle East tracks, like pretty much all ticked off, which I've been because I've been in all those random crazy championships and those side ones that I do at the same time. Like for instance, next year I'm doing 5 championships. 2 are classic championships, but then 3 in GT. So I end up covering crazy lists of different tracks because of that. Yeah. But now I want to make a car list.
You should, yeah. That'd be a fascinating one.
And sorry.
No, you go, you go.
Just coming briefly back to socials, how important do you think your following on social media has a bearing on how many deals you're getting with either sponsors or just people paying you to come and do this cool race or stunt in a film? Do you think it has a massive bearing or not much or average?
I'd say on the higher end of yes, of it being vital. I mean, if you exclude like Instagram ads, which I kind of rarely do, I think I did 2 the last week, which the first 2 I think I'd done this year because they just gave me the ick a little bit. Like I want it, unless they're specifically about motorsport, I really don't want to hold up a bagel and get someone to buy it. It doesn't really sit well with me. But I think it does have a big bearing because it's, like I said, the sticker on the side of the car, the however many people are watching the race live on YouTube, the 50,000 people. I don't know how many people watch a GT World Challenge race on YouTube, 50 to 100K or something, let's say. Like, I'm on a very, very minimal scale for me. Excuse me. It's like the effect that Valentino Rossi had when he came in GT World Challenge. And we call it the Rossi effect because he will tweet or put up one Instagram picture and it's more press than GT World Challenge would have got the whole year before every single session with every single driver doing a post every single day in one post. So that's worth way more. So if I can negotiate these deals and say, oh, and not just maybe through the Instagram part, but the connections I've made over time where they want to sponsor the race, but they only have this much money, but I can introduce them to X, Y, and Z, get them to this event. I can get you tickets for free to this F1 race, and you can have a hospitality here because I know him and he owes me a favor, and we'll put you a sticker on the side of the car. And I have a race suit deal with this company, so I'll get you a race suit for your office afterwards, and I'll do you 2 Instagram posts at the end. All of a sudden, it's leveraging between those contacts you've got. And I think, again, we're incredibly lucky that motorsport is of, I think, almost any sport I can think of in the world probably has the most, both in the sponsorship and viewer section, but also the drivers themselves, millionaires and affluent people who do amazing, crazy things. So those connections are super strong. And it's one of the things that I've spoken to some of my AM drivers about. It's part of the reason they actually do the motorsport, because they know when they walk into a paddock club or in the McLaren hospitality on a race weekend, every single driver will have some benefit to their business or is a wealthy entrepreneur, which might not happen when you walk on a football field.
And how do you feel any pressure to, is it still with the Instagram, the TikTok, whatever it is it still like a picture book of your life? Or is it more, I feel pressure to upload something every day to keep this going, keep growing, to keep getting good deals, keep earning money?
Definitely that second side has definitely come in. There's definitely more pressure there, but the pressure I haven't succumbed to, and probably through my own fault, because my growing is effectively stopped. It's pretty stagnant. It goes from used to be thousands of new followers, like every single week, like without fail. You'd lose 500, you'd gain 5k or whatever. Now it's fairly stagnant. Like I get a few hundred followers a week here or there, few drop off that realize I don't really want to see race cars all the time anymore. And I've sacrificed that point of, I know what does well, I know what reels do well, I know if I just post an onboard of a cool car every day, I will get to 1 million followers by the end of the year. But I don't want to do that.
Okay.
And I won't get a commentating or presenting job if I just post in the car and no one sees my face.
That's the thing, they're not liking you. This is what I said with the podcast when I first started with Jordan, and we're trying to keep it so that I see some podcasts online, just to use this as an example without digressing too much, that they only get views when they've got a name on, like they've got a name as a guest on. Do you know what I mean? And I want people to like our podcast because they like me and Jordan. They like the questions.
Which is why I'm here.
Yeah,
because I'm not a name and it's just on you.
No, you are
a name, mate. You are
the biggest name we've had on.
Yeah.
No, give over. I've seen some of your podcasts. Kush, I love you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
In
In terms of reach and following and stuff, you're the biggest.
Okay.
But
You're the P1.
But in saying that, P1 podcast. No, you can't promote another podcast.
No. I mean, you're P1.
I think you're doing the right thing with that, and also having had many managers in the social media space and gone through a few of them and decided not to be with them, and also understand that myself. And I actually also manage a couple of other drivers from.
Do you manage your own?
My page, 100% of it.
really?
Yeah, I do every single bit myself,
No way.
every single thing, and including like my flights and my travel and everything. By the way,
Editing?
like people always think no. So anything that looks incredibly well filmed, and I'm in front of the camera. Obviously, it's not me.
No.
It's like my friend Arif, who's incredibly talented, or it's one of the guys. But anything where you don't see me, it's a POV, or basically, if I'm in front of the camera, someone else has filmed it, obviously, and edited it. Otherwise, it is mostly me. It used to all be me, but then I realized I'm not in front of the camera. And what you guys are doing is the right thing, because having seen all these different pages and managed different pages and spoken to social media managers, if you've got a page that's got 10 million followers and it's been around for ages and they've kind of lost their way in what they're posting and people just like what's on there rather than the person, versus micro influencers who have 10,000 or to 100k, those ones are getting more money now than the bigger pages.
Okay.
Because, and if you can sell yourself and you become the personalities of it, and that's why I wanted to put myself in front of camera a lot more recently, and on my page, which I'm not normally that comfortable with, doesn't get anywhere near as much engagement. And I'm talking literally like I will post an onboard video that might get 3 million views, and the next day post a picture of me trying to look all dashing and handsome and just a static image, and it will literally be like 500 likes. And it is night and day. People just, and especially with the way Instagram pushes stuff now, they won't even show anyone it. They're like, that is rubbish, no one's looking at that.
Do you let that affect you?
I guess it does to a bit. It'd be nice if it was liked the same way, but I would do the same. I would do the same. Like it only works, that combination, when it's like magic and it's like perfect, like the original Top Gear crew, and you've got three cool personalities that you find funny to watch, and they're also doing cool shit, and they're also in cool cars. Yeah. But that combination isn't always there.
So rare to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see that, like, even with the P1 podcast, like Matt and Tommy, the Top Gear boys, it's like there are some people that have pages or TV shows where they just like what's on there and the content that they do, regardless of who's on there.
Yeah.
And then you've got the complete flip side, which is like Clarkson, for example. He could do a TV show, I think, about anything.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone would go and watch it because, well, yes, he's super likable and easy to watch, and he's got this huge influence and fan base.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we want to try and do with the backseat drivers.
Yes.
It's good to hear someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So it's doing the right thing.
Definitely. It's a slower, harder way to do it, but it's definitely a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Because then you're sellable and you're marketable rather than just whoever ends up on this sofa.
Because you're growing followers. Like if we posted stuff that, I mean, it's difficult with the podcast. It'd be difficult to post stuff that didn't have us in it anyway, and our humor and our questions and whatever. But it's you're not building a base of people that actually like you, and you're not becoming the influencer. It's just your content of driving the car or whatever, which I try and do. I need to sort out my own Instagram, because I look at it and I'm like, it would be so much easier. I've had quite a few sponsorship interests that have like gone quite a long way in conversations, phone calls, or meetings. And then it's like, well, how many followers? We're doing this. We're sponsoring this driver. She's got 100K, and this guy's got 50K.
Yeah.
How much do you have on Instagram? Like 3,000. And they're like, no.
But this is why I speak to other drivers about things, because I had a similar thing, and it's definitely something you should do. Is when Formula E first came through Visit Saudi, and they had the first race coming, and it was a conglomerate, so obviously they're a big company. There was no flexibility. It was like, this is how many followers we need from you, and this is how many you need to achieve. Otherwise, we're not paying you this much, and we need you to promote the first Formula E race. But then you can get a pool of like 5 good people, or you'd call me, and then you'd call Shmi or TGE or someone else in motorsport, and be like, and then you go back to them and go, right, the 5 of us are going to come, or you're doing a race and then 3 of us come to support. We'll all post about that race together. I'll give them all a cut, and then at least I'm getting what I wouldn't have got otherwise.
Yeah, sure.
So then we went to Formula E, and I brought a group of 5 people, and I'm like, this is what you're going to get. I'm taking 20% of everything. They wouldn't have got me by myself anyway. I don't have enough followers.
Yeah.
And then you're piggybacking off your contacts then, and everyone wins.
Got you. But with companies getting in touch, wanting to know, like the ones with you, okay, got 3,000. This person's you've got 300,000, say. Surely they're looking to who your audience is. They're not just thinking, right, he's got big. Surely they actually ask
now
your analytics, because they've got a product that they want to sell.
Yeah.
You've got the wrong audience.
It's actually been super tough because of that. Because back when it first started and there wasn't the analytics, it was...
They didn't know.
They didn't know. It was like you were paying 20K for a page in the Daily Mail, and you just hope that the right people see it. And that kind of worked for us when we were doing Instagram at the start, because it might be a product they only want to push in Brazil, and secretly you have 0% in Brazil. And you're just like,
take the money.
Whereas now it's like, I need to see, like, the one I get a lot, which has been really tough, is now I live in Dubai. A lot of Middle East companies, car related companies, but can you send us your UAE demographic? And it's like tiny. It's like 1%. So, and it's a real struggle, because all of a sudden you go from thinking you have 300K followers to having
actually have 100 or 1,000. Yeah.
And then it doesn't work.
Well, right. For our sports car fans,
yes.
Won't spend too much of your time, but Le Mans. Tell us about that experience, racing on the famous Le Mans race.
Just the best race in the world. I was absolutely blown away. So I was very ignorant first going to it. Hadn't been to a Le Mans before, had this incredible opportunity with a very good brand, with Alpine, in this weird spaceship car that I hadn't been watching at all, hadn't really been watching WEC. And obviously I knew of Le Mans. I was a racing driver trying to get to Formula One, so I knew about it, but I was not the kid sitting down watching the whole of the 24 hours like I am now. So going there, blown away by just the sheer size of it, everything that goes into it. The paddock looks like a Formula One paddock. The amount of people that go into it. I mean, it is just its own world, and it is extremely cutthroat, very, very tough. But the biggest thing I enjoyed was having teammates that you want to be quick. It was my first time in my career wanting another driver to be as quick as me.
That's quite rare, actually. Yeah.
You just want to be quicker all the time. And you still want to be quicker when you're in a teammate, but you want to be 1/1000th of a second quicker than your teammate. That's ideal, because then you're all quick. Yeah. You still don't want to be slower, but you know, like if your teammate's half a second off you, you're going through data together, and all of a sudden a team builds around you, and it's incredible. So yeah, to do my first Le Mans with Alpine, with a French brand, who were coming back into Formula One, who are now in prototypes, standing on the podium at Le Mans and looking down with 300,000 people who are like absolutely addicted to the same thing you're addicted to, holding that 4-poster trophy and then winning the championship at the end of the year. I was like, I can see myself here. This is, motorsport's getting more popular. This isn't as watched as maybe the single-seater stuff, but more so than I thought in terms of Le Mans and the dedicated watchers. And then, lo and behold, then I think it was like 8 years later, 8 or 9 Le Mans and ALMS and WEC for 6 years. And it's been 2 years out. And for me, it's not done yet. I think the different route in now for me, whereas some of those drives were like semi-factory and I was always the pro in all of those years, the deal for me to get into it now is with an AM who has budget, who likes the way I coach, who likes the way I drive, knows that I'm quick enough, and then we'll end up in a GT car. I think it'll be very hard for me to end up in a hypercar again. And even with hypercar, like last year, I had an offer for hypercar and it had a bill on it.
What?
So even at this level,
they were charging you.
Yeah. I think they were trying it on, but that still happens. When I say charging me, it was like, okay, you cover all your expenses, you do all it. It was kind of equated almost to like a free seat, but this was the point where I was like, that's not happening anymore.
It's amazing you can have your CV and still have a team. Okay, it's prototypes. Yes, it's cool, but you still have a team that's going, okay, you need to cover your flights and your hotels and you're not getting paid. Yeah,
but there's kids coming out of F2 with big budget that all of a sudden only have to spend a third of it and they can be in a hypercar. And I'm telling you, there's 20% of the hypercar
going up against them.
Money, but this is what amazes me about racing. So you've just said like there's kids that come from Formula 2 having paid 2 or 3 million for their seasons. And then they step down and all of a sudden they've only got to pay 200k or 400k or 500k to go and race in WEC in a prototype or, whatever it is, GT racing. Or Formula E, they'll probably get paid to do that, or I don't know if anyone brings money to that. But there's you do look at it sometimes, and especially with single seaters, you just think, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like even if you've got the funding and your parents are worth quite a bit of money, but even if your parents are worth like 20 to 40 million, still to pay 3 million a year or 2 million a year,
it's a big chunk of your bank account.
Is a huge I wouldn't say risk at that level, but it's still like a lot of money. And then if the fallback from that is paying to do something else, it's like, where does this end?
I guess I'm not in their mindset, but I'm hoping or I'm thinking that they must still be thinking eventually it will stop. Which it does. No one gets paid to go racing straight away. So It's just a scale, isn't it? And I guess, like you said, if you're worth 40, 50, 100 million, the scale can just happen for longer. We'll go karting. Our parents might help us in our first couple of formulas or whatever we're doing. Then we need a bit of sponsorship. And then maybe the scale is just slightly smaller or bigger, depends on the person. I understand that. And if I was a multi-billionaire and had a kid who wanted to go racing, I'd spend a lot of money to let him go racing. Yeah. It is all relevant. And if that's what they want, I guess it's all relative. And I don't know, if I was Stroll's dad, would I do everything in the world to get him? Maybe, if he wanted to, I guess so. Should he not be doing that? It's tough. He should be putting that money.
I think he should if he had the right attitude, but he doesn't.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. There is definitely something to be said for that. Let's make it known that there are people. Okay, he's crazy wealthy. There's people just as wealthy enough to get to Formula One who don't have that attitude, who come across very well
Behrman,
on camera.
Lando, you know, they're not hiding, and the dad as well. Like Behrman, for example, and we had Enzo Mucci, Behrman's coach, on or mental coach. And he just said, like, his dad, yes, he's always had the means to do it, and he's built it up himself, having been a kid that tried to do karting and didn't have the money to go all the way. Now living that dream through his son, but he's instilled such great qualities in Ollie. Like, when I've met him a couple times very briefly in the last year, and he's so normal, down to earth. And I was at the pub last night with Charlie, John Pratt's son, and he said how he was working in retail and Ollie came into a store and whatever, and he couldn't work out whether it's him. He's not like super racing savvy, Charlie, but he was like, he said to him after working with him for about 30 minutes trying to help him get some shoes or whatever he was doing, I was like, you really look like Ollie Behrman. And he was like, you know what, I get that a lot. Yeah, well, that's because I am Ollie Behrman. And they just had like a long conversation. So he's a really nice kid. And I think what I've heard is that his dad instilled amazing qualities in Ollie. And you can see how hardworking. You can see that he's got a fire behind those eyes, that he's really driven to be there. Whereas when I look at Stroll, like almost everyone, I'll say it just pisses me off. Yeah, because
so yeah, what were you saying about Lance Stroll?
Yeah, no,
you're saying how much you liked him, weren't you?
Yeah, I was saying I really enjoy Lance Stroll. No, like I'll sit here and say, like, he's not a bad driver. Like, he gets lots of stick for being this awful driver. Like, he's really not a bad driver, but he doesn't deserve to be an F1. I mean, all the drivers know it and have kind of passed comments on that, or at least in a roundabout way in press conferences have been like, well, some people don't deserve to be here while sitting next to Lance Stroll. But I wouldn't mind if he was being funded in there and he was, the same talent he is, and he had this really likable attitude, not even just personality, but he clearly cared. And he, like, a bit like Logan Sargent, you can see he really cared, and he was just in a bad place. And again, a good driver that just didn't quite make it in Formula One for whatever reason, pressure, whatever. But when you see him crash, like Brazil was so bad. Yeah, and
didn't care.
But it wasn't that annoyed me. The fact that he crashed on the green flag and then proceeded to drive straight into the gravel.
Just a little bit of that.
It's the fact that I've listened to the radio message, I don't know if you guys have, but his engineer's like telling him what to do. Yeah, okay, brake here, get the temps to this, blah, blah, blah. Locks up, spins into the wall, and comes on the radio and goes, yeah, I've crashed.
Do you know what I think it is? I think he doesn't want to be seen to care. You know how some people want to just brush it off, like, I think he doesn't want to be seen to really, care so much about it.
He needs to have that. But he needs to have that, like, Ollie Behrman attitude, or like the attitude you're saying. And I always think of it like, I was extremely lucky, and I thank my dad for helping me when I was younger. But we need to, like Ollie Behrman's maybe had a lot of help, and it's almost worse if you've been given this stepping stone to waste it than it is if you had nothing, tried and didn't get there.
Yeah,
if you've been
100%.
given this opportunity, that's another reason why I work every single day, because I'm like, if I slack and start giving up and then stop getting drives, then everything was wasted. And like, I know how expensive junior formulas were, so I also need to work my ass off for a long time to make sure that, like, it goes into the plus, right? So, like, yes, I'm now earning and have been for a few years, but to get back to neutral takes a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, that's deep, making me feel bad now.
Gus is
Better sort my shit out.
But anyway, thank you so much for coming today, Ollie.
Oh,
we got the BBC.
Oh, the BBC.
BBC. God.
Right, just really, it's only 2 minutes.
I've seen this, but I literally have.
You played Bop It before?
When, like, 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I have a practice go?
Yeah, there's one practice go. Get one. This is a backseat Bop It challenge, in short, the BBC. He's going to sleep. You get one practice run, regardless of how it goes.
Which is the Bop It and which is the Bop It? Treat me like a total amateur.
Right. You've got 3 commands, right? Bop it, pull it, twist it. So Bop It's in the middle. The other one.
That one.
That's pull.
Yeah. It's better to have that.
I'm going to get wrong.
It's better to have that the other way around. I'd say, there you go. You got a good grip of the BBC.
Twist.
Louise held it here.
Louise,
where?
Like a phone.
I said she
that's pull.
I said she looked like my dad with an iPhone. That didn't go down well. Yeah.
Right. So pull is blue and twist is red. Bop It is in the middle.
Red. Don't confuse me.
Sorry. Yeah. Right. So pull it to start, Ollie.
Just the orange one.
Run.
Pull, twist,
bop.
Bop.
Now Bop It.
I scored 100. Bop it. Twist it. Pull it.
Let's get in there.
Twist it. Pull it.
Never know what to do in this segment.
Oh,
God.
Oh, it goes quite quick.
Yeah, you've got it's about the timing.
So if you do it too quick at the start,
No,
it's
no,
going
no,
to accelerate.
No, you
just
just
as quick
got
as
to
you
do it as
can,
quick as
always.
you can.
So that was 5. So this counts now.
This counts. This is it.
Oh my God.
Pull it again and then bop
Got 5 to beat. Top score's 40 something.
by
Fuck
Kush.
off.
Kush. Yeah.
Stop it to start.
Press it.
40 something.
Yeah.
Was that fun sitting there for 40?
Yeah.
Right.
Here we go.
Here we go. This is it.
Ollie on the BBC.
Twist it. Pull it. Pop it.
He's thinking, what the fuck am I doing here?
Twist it.
Just got back from Austin yesterday. Now he's got to bop it.
Twist it. Twist it.
I'm beating Louise
Pop it.
and Joseph Lowe.
Pop it. Pull it. Pop it. Twist it. Twist it. Pop it. Pop it. Pop it.
Why did she do
Pull it. Pop it. Pop it.
Oh, it's going well.
Pull it. Twist it. Pop it.
It's got the Kush pull.
Pull it. Twist it. Pop it. Twist it. Pull it. Twist it. Pop it. Twist it.
Oh, it's going well. This could be P1.
Twist it. Pull it. Pop it.
I can see him shaking.
Pull it. Twist it.
He's like,
Twist it.
pop.
Pull it. Twist it. Pull it. Pop it. Pull it. Twist it. Pull it. Pop it. Pull it. Pull it. Pop it. Pull it.
Oh my God.
Pop it. Pull it. Pull it. Pop it. Pop it.
Jesus.
Pull it. Pop it. Twist it.
Oh, wait, listen.
Do this. Score 69.
You're like, yeah!
You got 69 on the BBC.
Is that P1?
That's
Yeah,
P1.
P1.
Well done, mate.
You
61.
beat Kush Miney's P2 now.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Ollie.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much,
having
Ollie.
me. Woo!